Well, it looks like them Archer boys are in a real barrel of molasses again. How are they gonna warp speed their way out of this one? Welcome to Dramatis Personae. I'm Angel Castillo. I am your host. What is Dramatis Personae? It is the only fortnightly internet nerd show where a amateur cast of actors with a professional strength love of Star Trek gather to reenact some of our favorite episodes from all the different Trek shows, and then afterwards do a little discussion where we unpack the different cultural and political messages, both overt and covert. If you did not guess from my intro, today we are going to the 22nd century. It's been a long road, but getting from there to here, I've run out of Faith of the Heart jokes. We're doing Enterprise, and it is the Enterprise episode, Singularity. So let me go ahead and introduce the cast that will be performing this episode. I will say their names, and you can just say hi and tell us who you're playing this week. I am playing probably the best character in the show. I'm going to be playing the first good boy. I'm going to be playing Porthos when he comes in. But we've got Lita Chrisman.
I will not be playing a good boy, but I will be playing T'Pol.
Excellent. We got Randall C. Brown.
Hi, I will be playing Captain Jonathan Archer.
Our fearless leader. Maxim Rex.
Hi there, I'm playing Trip Tucker.
All right. Probably the most authentic accent we've gotten since Paul played O'Brien. Speaking of Paul, who are you playing? Paul Bloomer.
I am playing Lieutenant Cunningham.
We'll accept it. We're an international production. Aaron Getson.
Hi, I'm playing Hoshi Sato.
All right. Then we've got Cheryl.
Hi, folks. I'm playing Dr. Phlox.
Everyone's favorite polyamorous doctor. Then we got Sarah Horton.
I'm playing Ensign Travis Mayweather.
All right. Then we got Ben Church.
Hello, I'm playing Lieutenant Reed.
Excellent, excellent. All right, I think that's everybody. And then as always, we've got our producer, Carl St. Lucie on the ones and twos. So for those of you who might be just joining us, every fortnight when we do an episode of Dramatis Personae, we like to take this time to nerd out and also support progressive causes. So if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, you might notice in the video description or down in the comments, there will be a link to a platform called Tiltify, where we are raising funds for an organization called SAGE. Now, for those of you who don't know what SAGE is, let me just read a little bit of their About Us.
Hey, Angel.
Yes.
Before we do that, can you introduce Zach, who's narrating today?
Oh, I think I missed him on the cast list. Okay, Zach.
Hi, I'm the narrator. Thanks.
Excellent. We can't do an audio reenactment show without the narrator, so I am very sorry for omitting such an essential character. Okay. Now we've got everybody introduced. Now that we all know who's on the crew of the NX-01 Enterprise and the Periphery, let me tell you a little bit about SAGE. This is from their website, sageusa.org. For 40 plus years, SAGE has worked tirelessly on behalf of LGBT older people. Building off the momentum of the Stonewall Uprising and the emerging LGBT civil rights movement, a group of activists came together to ensure that LGBT older people could age with respect and dignity. The organization was founded in 1978. So while, you know, as social change is becoming more and more more and more easy to witness in the internet age, you know, we have a little bit more ease with which we can witness the story of young LGBT folk and their journey growing up and accepting themselves. It is important to also care for the elders in those communities, and SAGE is one of those organizations that does that. And because with specific communities that have undergone so much oppression and struggle, it is really important to maintain a sense of continuity and relationship with that history. because I think it informs the future of those struggles for liberation. So if you got a little bit of extra money clinging and clanging around in your wallet, head down to Tiltify and contribute to some of that important work. We'll be talking a little bit more about them during some of the commercial breaks in the script. But I think that's enough setup and housekeeping from my end. I think it's time for us to load some photonic torpedoes and grab our phase pistols and begin the Enterprise episode, Singularity. Take it away, Zach.
We see the entire crew out cold on the floor or slumped over in their duty stations all over the ship.
Science Officer's Log, August 14th, 2152. Enterprise remains on course for the trinary system. I've transmitted a distress call, but the nearest Vulcan ship is more than 9 days away. By the time they arrive, they may only find debris, if that. Even if Enterprise makes it past the black hole without being destroyed, it seems likely the crew won't survive.
Dun, dun, dun. End of teaser. In Act 1, we're in T'Pol's quarters. She is working on the computer and pacing around the room as she speaks. There is a definite element of concern in her voice.
I'm continuing my analysis of the condition that's stricken the crew. Without Dr. Phlox's assistance, I'm not hopeful about reversing its effects. I'm documenting my findings so that Starfleet will at least have a record of what happened. The symptoms began not long after we set a course for the trinary system. That was nearly 2 days ago.
In the Situation Room, Archer, T'Pol, and Tucker are looking at an image on one of the view screens.
You're sure it's a black hole?
A Class 4.
According to the Vulcan star charts, your people have surveyed more than 2,000 of these things.
That's correct, but none of them were part of a trinary star system.
How close can we get?
The gravitational shear between the stars is extreme. We'd have to drop to impulse, but we should be able to approach to within 5 million kilometers.
Close enough to get some nice pictures.
How long would it take to reach the system at impulse?
2 days.
Set a course.
T'Pol walks away.
Trip. If you've got some free time, I'd love it if you could take a look at my chair.
Sir?
The captain's chair.
What about it?
You may not have noticed, but I don't sit in it very much.
Is there a problem?
It's uncomfortable. When I lean back, I feel like I'm about to slide out of it. I sort of have to perch on the edge.
I always assumed it was the best seat in the house.
Take a look at it for me.
I was gonna purge the impulse manifolds.
The chair first, if you don't mind.
Aye, aye, sir.
In the ready room, the monitors show a portion of text about Henry Archer, Jonathan Archer's father.
Come in.
Good morning.
Morning.
Am I interrupting?
No, I'm just thinking about something.
Today's duty roster?
She hands over a pad.
Thanks.
Lieutenant Reed has a new security protocol he'd like to discuss with you.
I'll drop by the armory. Anything else?
Chef didn't report for duty this morning. He's ill.
Is it serious?
Dr. Flock said it's a simple virus. He should be fine after a few days' rest. Ensign Sato has offered to take charge of the mess hall. Apparently, she spends some of her free time in the galley and is eager for an opportunity to cook for the crew.
If it's all right with Chef. Let me ask you a question. I received a manuscript from Earth, a biography of my father. I've been asked to write the preface. Would you mind reading it when I'm done?
I'd be happy to.
And if I can ever get it finished, I've been putting it off for weeks.
The next 2 days should provide you with ample opportunity.
It's not that I haven't had the time. They only asked for a page. How am I supposed to sum up my father's life, a page? It would have been easier if they asked me to write the book.
Perhaps by focusing on one incident, a single event that exemplifies your relationship with your father, you'll be able to condense your thoughts.
A logical approach. Maybe you'd like to write it for me?
I'm hardly qualified.
To the galley, Cunningham and Sato are walking around making preparations for food.
Chef was planning to make fried chicken tonight with scalloped potatoes and some of the Minaran spinach we picked up on Risa.
The orange spinach?
Yeah, he's convinced there's a way to make it edible.
Why don't we let him tackle that when he gets back? I have something else in mind.
She calls up an Oriental recipe on the monitor.
It's one of my grandmother's specialty. The recipe's been passed down for generations.
I'll need a translation before I can program the protein resequencer.
Oh no, you can resequence all the chicken and potatoes you want, but I am making this from scratch.
Cut to sickbay. Phylox is grinding herbs with a pestle and mortar when Travis enters.
Ensign, is there something I can do for you?
I've got a little headache. Nothing serious.
Why don't you let me have a look?
I was hoping you could just give me something. I'm right in the middle of upgrading the navigation sensor.
It would be irresponsible to dispense medication without examining you first. Any other symptoms? Dizziness, blurred vision?
No.
How long have you had it?
Couple days on and off.
Well, I've been meaning to have you drop by sickbay in any case to see if you've had any problems since I removed the neural implants you received at the repair station.
You think it could have something to do with that?
Oh, I never rule out anything. Then again, it could be as innocuous as muscular tension. On the other hand, Tyrellian plague starts out with a simple headache. Then all manner of nasty things begin to happen.
Travis seems extremely concerned with this thought. Cut to the bridge. T'Pol is attempting to do some research while Tucker is using what looks like a dentist drill on the base of the captain's chair. She is visibly annoyed with the noise.
Commander? Commander?
Push it forward. That's good. Hold it there.
Commander?
He turns off the drill.
Perhaps you could finish that later.
This may not be as glamorous as a black hole, but the captain gave me an order.
He also requested detailed sensor readings of this trinary system.
I thought Vulcans had all this mental focus and discipline.
We also have sensitive hearing.
Tucker resumes drilling.
I'll be in my quarters.
We'll let you know when we're done.
In the armory, several crew members are working on projects around the room.
Keep those target discriminators aligned. We don't want a torpedo mistaking one of our own nacelles for an enemy vessel.
You asked to see me, Malcolm?
I would have come to you, Captain.
It's no problem. What's on your mind?
I've been reviewing our encounters with hostile species. The crew's response has been admirable, but I feel we can do better, sir.
And you have a proposal?
I've been thinking about a ship-wide emergency alert. Something a bit more comprehensive than battle stations. We're taking too long to react to potential threats. With a single order from you or an impact to the hull, the plating could be polarized, weapons brought online, critical systems secured.
I appreciate your concern, Malcolm, but this isn't a warship.
That's obvious, sir. During our last run-in with the Sudaban, we were unprepared for their boarding parties. When the Mazarites attacked, they disabled our aft sensors with their first shot. The list goes on.
He hands over a pad, which Archer reviews the data listed.
I can see that. Run this by the senior officers, get some feedback, and we'll talk again.
Yes, sir.
And Malcolm, don't call it battle stations. Think of something less aggressive.
End of Act 1. In Act 2, we start off in the mess hall. The tables are full with people eating from bowls using chopsticks. Hoshi is hovering over them.
How was it?
A crewman nods.
Condition red?
Tucker looks up from reading a pad.
Huh?
What about condition red for the new security protocol?
Why don't you just call it security protocol?
Well, that's not very dynamic.
Do you think a cup holder's too much?
I beg your pardon?
For the captain's chair. He just wanted the seat adjusted, but I figured as long as I'm working on it.
Just what the captain needs in a crisis, a place to rest his beverage.
I'm also upgrading the status displays. He'll be able to access tactical data from the armrest.
If you really want to improve tactical readiness, why don't you help me with this protocol?
I'm a little busy right now, Malcolm.
It's a chair.
It's the captain's chair. It's just as important as your read alert.
Read alert? That's not bad.
Enjoying your lunch?
Yeah, thanks. It was terrific.
It's called Odin. Every Japanese family has their own way of preparing it.
Well, it seems to be a big hit. Congratulations.
Thank you, Lieutenant. You barely touched yours.
It was lovely.
I'll get you a fresh bowl.
That's not necessary.
Oh, it's no problem.
Please, not hungry.
Are you sure there's nothing wrong with it?
Well, it was a bit salty.
Salty.
She tastes it.
It tastes fine.
Well, it must just be me then. Everybody else seems to be enjoying it.
The pair get up and leave, still intent on their paths. Hoshi is visibly annoyed. In sickbay, Travis is lying on a gurney.
How much longer is this going to take?
That depends.
On what?
Hold still, Ensign.
I have to get back to the bridge.
I'm afraid you won't be returning to duty today.
The captain needs those upgrades, Doctor.
When it comes to medical matters, my authority overrides the captain's. I'm keeping you overnight for observation.
But your scans didn't show anything.
And that's what concerns me. Whatever's afflicting you may be lying dormant. I'm going to run a full biomolecular scan to see if we can find where it's hiding. Now lie back and don't move.
The gurney moves into the body scanner. In Archer's corners, he is dictating his preface, and the computer is putting it up on the screen, including punctuation.
When I was about 8 years old, my father took me on a tour of the Warp 5 facility outside of Bozeman, Montana. He introduced me to the people he worked with, scientists like names like Tasaki and Cochrane. At the time, I didn't realize the significance of those names or the significance of my father's work.
Porthos barks. Archer continues speaking, visibly rattled.
Computer, pause. I'll feed you in a minute, huh? Computer, resume recording. In a way, creating a stable warp field mirrored the flux of emotions my father felt when he embarked on. Computer, pause. Delete the last paragraph. Hell, delete the whole thing. Quiet.
The little dog goes to his cushion and sulks. End of Act 2.
Will Porthos get the cheese he desires? From what country is Oriental? How horny does spinach from Risa make you? Questions I hope we answer in the next act. But in the meantime, let me talk again about SAGE, the organization for which we are raising money. If you go down to the video description, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, or into the comments, you will see the Tiltify link to pitch in some money for SAGE. Now let me talk to you about SAGE's mission. This is again from their website, sageusa.org. So check them out if you want to investigate deeper who you're giving your money to. So SAGE leads in addressing issues related to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender aging. In partnership with its constituents and allies, SAGE works to achieve a high quality of life for LGBT older people, supports and advocates for their rights, fosters a great understanding of aging in all communities, and promotes positive images of LGBT life in later years. Their core values are diversity and equity, collaborative teamwork and partnership, innovation, LGBT older voices coming first, top performance in a diverse marketplace, and respect and compassion. So once again, if you go down to Tiltify, kick in a few bucks if you do it during the live stream, we will read your name and thank you, and in a way that will be committed permanently to the wavelengths of the internet. So you will leave a legacy of you being a caring and kind human being long after your body has returned to the loam and turned to dust, which I think is what we all want. So yeah, like, just to editorialize a slight bit more, it's like when we think about the intersections of things like race, class, gender, etc., one of the things that often does get left out is age. It's like our attitudes towards people do shift as they age. And sometimes, when people don't already have an active familial support network, like unfortunately happens to a lot of LGBT people. You know, it's hard for them to get the care that they need as they age. So this is like a really, I think I personally, as somebody who's like not really affected by any of those issues yet, being aware of SAGE has just been a really edifying gap to fill in my awareness and education. So yeah, donate. So enough of my blabbering. Let's get back, find out how horny that orange spinach makes people, and get to the next act of Singularity. Take it away, Zach.
Act 3. It's Paul's quarters. She is working on a pad and a computer at the same time.
Come in.
Here's your sensor interface. What's the emergency?
This trinary system is emitting some unusual radiation. I'm trying to identify it.
You dragged me up here so you could identify radiation?
Correct.
You said it was urgent.
I said it was important.
I get it. You're paying me back, making me jump through hoops because I was making too much noise. Well, you'll be happy to know I moved the captain's chair down to engineering, so it's nice and quiet on the bridge now.
I prefer to work here. I'll need your assistance with this.
Weren't you listening to me? I don't have time to cater to your whims. You want to get your name immortalized in the Vulcan database, get someone else to help you do it.
Are you feeling all right, Commander?
I know you don't think this chair is important, but you're wrong. What's the most critical component on the ship? The main computer? The warp reactor? It's the crew. And the most important member of the crew is the captain. He makes life and death decisions every day, and the last thing he needs to be thinking in a critical situation is, gee, I wish this chair wasn't such a pain in the ass.
Tucker walks off, clearly as aggravated as a jackrabbit caught in a fence on a hot day. We got to sickbay.
Doctor?
Shush.
Alex is staring intently at the body scanner monitor.
When are you going to...
Wait.
I have just enough time to shower and get changed.
I haven't discharged you, Ensign.
I haven't slept all night, and I'm supposed to go on duty in 15 minutes.
I need to perform a cerebral microsection.
Oh, what?
Lie down.
No more tests. I have to get to the bridge.
Flop spots away.
I'm giving you an order.
If I don't finish those upgrades, I could get a reprimand. It'll be in my permanent record.
You have far more to worry about than a blemish on your record. Do you see there? Your cortical scan shows elevated levels of serotonin and several other neurotransmitters.
What does that mean?
I'll let you know once I've completed the microsection.
Can't it wait till after my shift?
Absolutely not.
If the captain doesn't think I can handle my duties, I'll be scrubbing plasma conduits on D-deck for the next 5 years. I could be court-martialed.
And what if you're carrying a protocysteine spore and you infect the rest of the crew? How will that reflect on you? Or what if you suddenly suffer a seizure at the helm because you've contracted andronesian encephalitis? Now, there is something wrong with you, Ensign, and I intend to find out what it is.
Not today. Not during my shift. Unless you're ready to tie me to a biobed, I'm going back to my home.
Well, at least let me give you an analgesic for the headache.
That's all I wanted in the first place.
If it gets any worse or you suffer any other symptoms, return here immediately.
Travis nods. Phlox injects him.
What did you...
Travis passes out. Phlox lays him down and straps him to the gurney, like every good doctor would. Engineering. Trip is working on the captain's chair when Malcolm bursts in.
I've been working on the new security protocol. Obviously, the reactor must be secured immediately during a tactical alert.
Reed hands a pad to Tucker, who immediately disregards it and sets it aside.
Tactical alert.
I considered your suggestion, Reed alert, but it seemed a bit narcissistic.
Hand me that hyperspanner, would you?
I've also been working on a new alert signal. Tell me what you think.
A klaxon sounds. Tucker does not appreciate the sound.
Or this one.
A buzzer sounds. Tucker's aggravation increases and he gets up to turn it off.
Well, which do you prefer?
Reed picks the pad back up.
For what?
A tactical alert.
They both sound like a bag full of cats.
Well, they were designed to get your attention.
He takes the pad off Reed and puts it on a shelf.
I'll look this over and get back to you.
Reed picks it up again.
I also need your help on an emergency shutdown procedure for the EPS grid.
Said I'll get back to you.
Fine. Let's hope we don't suffer a catastrophic reactor breach in the meantime.
Malcolm, one of your boys borrowed my laser micrometer. If you're heading to the armory, could you get it back for me?
Tucker looks extremely peeved. Galley, Sato is fussing over the food she is preparing.
Ensign, if we don't serve something soon, we're going to have a riot on our hands.
This too salty? Something's not right. Hand me the Chrissie and spice. I'll add it to the stock. Oh, I'm out of carrots.
There are 25 people.
Cunningham brings over the carrots.
With all due respect, you've been cooking the same meal over and over again.
I believe I'm in charge of the galley.
I understand.
You're relieved.
Ma'am?
Get out!
Armory. Reed is working on a computer.
Lieutenant, I need your...
Clearance code?
Beg your pardon?
What is your clearance code? The armory is a restricted area.
Even to the first officer.
How do I know you are the first officer? We've encountered species that can alter their appearance. They could masquerade as any one of us. I've issued codes to all senior officers to reveal if the ship's been infiltrated by imposters.
Part of your new security protocol.
It was sent to your console as a voice-encrypted command packet.
I haven't been to the bridge for several hours. As I was saying, I need assistance establishing a sensor interface in my quarters. I've asked Commander Tucker, but he became agitated. It was uncharacteristic even for him. Have you noticed anything abnormal about his behavior?
Why do you want to access the sensor array from your quarters?
I was asked to run detailed scans of the trinary star system.
I wasn't informed.
It isn't a tactical issue. Lieutenant, why are you armed?
From now on, security personnel are to wear sidearms in all restricted areas.
Have you cleared this with the captain?
It's in my proposal.
Has he approved your proposal?
I've been trying to get him to pay closer attention to security since we left space dock, but he's more interested in fraternizing with the crew, inviting them to breakfast and to watch water polo. I intend to implement some long overdue changes, and if the captain won't approve them, then I'll go directly to Starfleet Command. Was there anything else?
No.
Paul leaves, going to Paul's quarters and continuing the direction from the start of the story.
It wasn't long before I realized the odd behavior wasn't limited to Commander Tucker. In fact, everyone I encountered was acting strangely, growing consumed with matters that seemed trivial at best. I also discovered that although I appeared to be immune, the captain was not.
Engineering. Archer enters, gazing at the pad he's writing the book preface on.
What happened to my chair?
Did you know that this chair is the exact same model that you used on Neptune-class survey ships?
Is that why you called me down here?
Enterprise is the first Warp 5 vessel in human history, the pride of the fleet, and you're sitting in a chair they've been using on Warp 2 ships for over a decade. You deserve better, so I'm starting from scratch. I'm going to build you a throne. Stand right there. I need to get a few parametric scans to get your exact dimensions. This baby's going to fit like a glove.
Archer backs away from the thing Trip is pointing at him.
Isn't that used for aligning phase coils?
You won't feel a thing.
Trip takes a stand.
As long as I'm down here, maybe I can get your opinion.
Don't move.
Archer reads from his pad.
How does one measure a man's legacy? Is it defined by the works he's created, the technological advances that will forever alter the course of human history?
Turn around.
If so, then no man, since Zephram Cochrane himself, has made a more lasting contribution to the future of humankind than my father, Dr. Henry Archer.
Well done.
What do you think?
Sounds good.
Let me read you the rest.
I really need to get to work on this.
Okay, it's just a few more pages.
How many more?
19.
19? Are you writing the preface or the book?
I've got a lot to say.
No kidding.
What's that supposed to mean?
If I may, sir, it's a little long-winded.
You're lucky you're a decent engineer because you obviously don't know anything about writing.
I'm not the only one.
Storms out. Galley.
I have 83 people to feed, not just senior officers.
All I requested was a bowl of plomik broth.
I don't have time for special orders. Anyway, you'll like the special.
Where's lunch?
It will be ready in a minute, sir.
I don't have a minute.
Well, if you're so hungry, fix yourself a sandwich.
Captain, may I speak with you?
Archer, the pot of Odin off the stove and starts to help himself.
That's a very complex recipe. I will not serve it until it is just right. My family's reputation is at stake.
A klaxon goes off.
This is a tactical alert. All hands report to your stations. I repeat, this is a tactical alert.
End of Act 3. Act 4. On the bridge.
Report.
Reed stands with his arms folded, shaking his head.
The crew's response was unacceptable. 38% of them failed to report to their stations. Critical systems haven't been secured. I haven't even heard from engineering.
Shut off that damn noise. Oh my God, shut it off. I don't recall authorizing a tactical drill.
It wouldn't be much of a drill if everybody knew about it, sir. 1 minute and 15 seconds.
What?
It took you 1 minute and 15 seconds to reach your post. I'd expect more of our commanding officer, given that the crew just might follow his example.
Captain.
1 minute and 49 seconds.
You might want to see this, sir.
He leads them back to the Situation Room, where he calls up plans for the new captain's chair on the central display.
Interactive status displays, secondary helm control. It's even got inertial micro dampers. The ship could be shaken apart and you'd hardly feel a thing.
You ignored a tactical alert for this?
I want to run some colors by you for the headrest.
This is all a big joke to you.
Give it a rest.
This isn't a bloody pleasure cruise. Without proper discipline on this ship, this mission is doomed.
Why don't you go play soldier somewhere else?
Archer becomes engrossed in his preface again.
If this were a military situation, you'd be taken out and shot.
Tucker grabs Reed and pushes him up against the bulkhead. Archer has to break them up.
Hey.
He shoves Tucker against the bulkhead himself.
I don't care what color the headrest is or whether it can serve me iced tea. I just want a place to sit when I'm on duty.
Then he does the same to Reed.
And if I hear that alarm one more time, I may have you taken out and shot.
Archer turns to T'Pol.
Unless there's a real emergency like a reactor breach, I don't want to be disturbed.
We cut to Archer's quarters. He is barefoot and slumped in a corner when the doorbell chimes.
Go away.
T'Pol comes in anyway.
Do I have to start locking my door?
You said to interrupt you if there was an emergency. I believe there is.
Is that right?
He goes over to the monitor, which shows the words he read to Tucker earlier.
The crew's behavior has become erratic. Even by human standards, they've grown distracted. Everyone I've encountered appears to be preoccupied with trivial matters. And Sensato's recipe, for example. Your preface. We should declare a medical emergency and have Dr. Phlox examine the crew. I suggest he begin with you.
I'm busy.
Captain.
Dismissed.
Your crew is in danger.
I gave you an order.
Captain.
I suggest you follow it or I'll have you confined to your quarters. Until Vulcan ship can come and get you.
He manhandles her out of the room. In sickbay, Phlox is in full latex surgery gear with Travis strapped to a table against his will.
You're just in time, Subcommander. There's a surgical gown in the compartment next to the microscope. This is a rare opportunity to explore the human brain.
Was he injured?
A headache. At first, I thought it was a simple vascular dilation, but then I discovered a chemical imbalance in his prefrontal cortex. I'm going to begin by extracting the first 12 millimeters of his parietal lobe. A subcellular analysis of the tissue should shed some light on the mystery.
Doctor, you may want to delay the procedure. We have a larger problem. The entire crew is ill.
They'll have to wait.
Paul stops him from cutting into Travis's head.
You've been affected as well.
Please remove your hand.
He moves his fingers so the laser scalpel is pointing at her eye.
I won't ask you again.
Paul releases him.
I'll let you know when I'm completed the surgery.
Paul administers a quick neck pinch, and he crumples to the floor. Then she goes to study Travis's brain scans. In the corridor, she finds a crew member laid out and runs a quick scan of his brain before heading to the galley, where Paul uses a medical scanner to check Hoshi's brain, and we see a pot of boiling over Odin. In Paul's quarters, she is reviewing the brain scan data on the computer.
The crew's bioscans were going erratic. I began to doubt any of them would survive more than a few hours. Ironically, Dr. Phlox's obsession with Ensign Mayweather's headache has provided some useful data. His cerebral scans have helped me determine that the radiation coming from the trinary system is causing...
A computer alert sound.
Computer pause.
A scan of the star's radiation field comes up.
Computer resume log. My radiometric analysis is complete. As I suspected, reversing course won't take us out of danger quickly enough. The radiation appears to extend outward at least half a light year in every direction except one. If I can chart a course between the stars, we could escape the radiation before the crew succumbs. But I won't be able to pilot the ship alone.
To Archer's quarters. Archer is slumped over in his desk.
Captain Archer, you're needed on the bridge.
I told you not to disturb me.
Paul hauled him to his feet.
We have very little time.
What are you doing?
Your crew may be dying.
What?
Do you remember the trinary star system?
The one with the black hole.
It's emitting a dangerous form of radiation. It's affecting your prefrontal cortex.
She gets him into his shower cubicle.
I believe that's why you and the crew have been exhibiting obsessive behavior. Some of the crew's biosigns are already unstable. If you're exposed to the radiation much longer, you won't survive.
She props him against the wall, gets out, and turns on the cold water.
Do you understand what I'm telling you?
Turn it off.
Do you understand?
Yes, radiation. Tell Phlox. If the sixth crew's sick, just tell Phlox.
He's been affected as well.
But not you?
Vulcan physiology seems to be immune.
Bring us about. Turn the ship around.
She turns the water off and gets him a towel.
It's not that simple. If we go back the way we came, we'll spend 2 more days in the radiation field. I've charted a course that'll have us clear of the radiation in less than 17 minutes.
Paul pours him coffee from a thermos that was on his desk.
Lousy coffee.
But we'll have to pass within 2 million kilometers of the black hole. There's considerable debris and gravitational shear. Someone needs to pilot Enterprise while I determine the course corrections.
Travis.
He's been sedated.
I'm in no condition to fly a starship.
We have no other choice.
End of Act 4. Act 5. On the bridge, the Enterprise sails serenely through a gas and boulders as Reed sleeps at his post.
More gravitational shear. We're too far to port.
Archer is at the helm.
But you said bearing 2.4.
12.4.
My mistake. 12.4.
There's a lot of juddering feedback from the joystick.
How much longer is this going to take?
6 minutes.
I'm good for that.
Another shear front. We need to rotate our longitudinal axis by 12 degrees and bring our flight vector to 014 Mark 27.
Hold on. 0 what?
014, Mark.
Mark 27.
The hull echoes as boulders bounce off it.
Just minor debris. The hull plating is holding. Our lateral vector is drifting. Captain.
Hang on a second. I feel like I'm in flight school again.
You're doing well. New heading, 006, Mark 4.
A huge lump of rock drifts into their path.
Captain.
I see it.
The rock shatters as they approach.
We need phase cannons.
They take too long to charge.
A big hit and the alert klaxon sounds.
All weapons are online. It must be part of the new security protocol.
Fire.
2 shots clear the path of danger.
Did you shut that off?
The klaxon stops.
How much longer?
Less than 10 seconds. 5 more seconds.
They clear the gas cloud and are in open, black, starlit space again.
Any more surprises?
Nothing on sensors.
Tucker wakes and gets up off the floor.
Did we get some nice pictures of the black hole?
Cut to sickbay. Fox is checking out the crew for residual effects.
How are you feeling?
A little tired, but the headache's gone. What did you do?
Very little, fortunately. You're free to go.
Archer and T'Pol enter.
Captain?
Trance leaves.
How's the crew?
Oh, I'm continuing to monitor vital signs, but I've detected no lingering effects from the radiation. Mostly just rattled nerves, a few bruises and sprains from when some of them lost consciousness. I appreciate your intervening before I got any further with Mr. Mayweather's procedure.
I wasn't certain it would work on a Denobulan.
It worked quite effectively, I can assure you.
What procedure on Mr. Mayweather?
The radiation affected my nervous system rather severely.
More crew members enter.
I'll be with you in a moment. I'll provide you with a full report when I've finished treating the crew.
Up to the ready room.
You wanted to see me, Captain?
I did. When T'Pol and I were navigating the debris field, your tactical alert went off.
I heard, sir. I've already deactivated the new protocols.
You shouldn't have. They brought the weapons online right when we needed them. If you make no objection, I'd like to make it standard procedure.
No objection, sir.
You still need to work on that alarm.
I'll get right on it.
Cut to the bridge. Trip has just finished putting the captain's chair back in its place.
Doesn't look any different to me.
Give it a try.
Archer sits and pauses.
Feels better. What'd you do?
Cross your legs.
What did you do? It seems totally different.
I lowered it by 1 centimeter.
That's all?
Didn't have time to install the new status displays or the inertial micro dampers, but if you give me a couple of days.
I think this will be fine, Commander.
How about I just attach the cup holder?
This will be fine.
Tucker leaves, giving a thumbs up to Archer, which is returned. After a couple of moments, Archer gets up and goes over to T'Pol with his pad.
How does this sound?
We fade to black as Archer begins reciting his preface. The end.
All right, now we know the answer to the question, what if space radiation turned the crew of the Enterprise into the cast of Seinfeld? Stick around, we are going to start our post-show discussion, but we're going to cut to some credits first. So stay tuned, I already said that, but still do it. right, welcome back. That was Singularity. I'm just gonna get this right off the top. So, I mean, if anybody has watched us do Enterprise episodes before, you know, it's not my favorite of the Trek shows. I have a certain affection for it, but oftentimes we, you know, we comment about some of the very irresponsible and like bad choices made by the by Rick Berman and also other people. Can we just address the fact that it's really fucked up that like the one black character on the show gets fucking medical experiments done on him? Whoever wants to talk first can talk about that, but it's just like, I didn't watch this episode previously to doing this episode, and then that's the thing that like sticks out to me like a sore fucking thumb. Everybody else gets to have something kind of fun, but we get like fucking Tuskegee happening in sickbay.
Yeah. Not only does he get experimented on, but he gets knocked out for most of the episode, so he hardly has any, you know, anything to do or say.
Right, he doesn't even get to resist.
Right, exactly.
It's just
all he wanted was a freaking Advil.
Right.
I mean, seriously, how do they not, like, this is the future. I carry 3 different kinds of headache pain reliever with me everywhere. How do they not have access to that on the ship?
I mean, you know, you could say like this could be like sort of an allegory for like the fact that oftentimes, you know, medical professionals don't take like, you know, black people's pain and like ailing as seriously, but like I just don't trust this show to have actually had that as an intentional thing in mind, and they just sort of instead unconsciously replicated a reality.
Although
I think
I kind of like how it reversed it, where the black guy was like, "It's just a headache," and the doctor's like, "No, you have a deadly disease."
Yeah. So Cheryl, you're not. I mean, I know you're not familiar with Trek in general, but like, just one of the things that is so funny to me about Trek fandom, that I'll just tell you from that point of view, and how I connect it to what we're just talking about. A lot of people don't like. There's a very vocal section of the fan base that doesn't like the current Trek shows like Discovery and Picard and stuff, and they always talk about how, you know, they're ruining Trek or ruining, you know, Gene's vision. And I always go back to like, if Trek survived Enterprise, it can survive anything, because you have all the previous shows, you know, like Uhura was a fucking statement of having like a black character that had things to say and things to do. And then you had on Next Generation, you had Geordi, you had Guinan on Deep Space Nine, you had fucking Cisco, like, need I say more? And then we get Enterprise, where what the fuck happened with Travis Mayweather? Sorry, not Trevor. But I like, yeah, I want to ask you a question. I'll just let you say what comes to mind for you.
It just it's kind of like a pathetic attempt to have a black person on the show.
Right.
You know, it's like, if you're not going to have him be important enough to give a storyline to, or you know, have him have anything, you know, important to say, then it really sticks out like a sore thumb, like you said,
right,
as being a, you know, this is just your attempt to have a token. So, you know, here, we've checked that box. We got a black character, so, you know, leave us alone, kind of thing.
Exactly. One of our viewers on YouTube, Casey, who's usually on this side of the screen with us, did comment saying that, yeah, Travis is so mistreated by the writers in this show, and it really is. It's the entirety of the show. Travis is one of the characters that I really like. When you hear about his backstory and everything, you know, one of the first episodes, you find him in like the gravity well. He's in that part where the gravity, right, anti-gravity doesn't, or the gravity doesn't work. So he's in like this little floaty spot, and it's really cool. Like, they give him some really interesting like background to build on, and then they just drop it.
When I watched when I watched the show the first time, I think he was a little bit more prominent at the beginning of the show, right? And then as time went on, it was like less and less.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling at the time was I thought he was probably the weakest actor of everybody, and I was wondering if that's why they like pushed him to the side. But
a convenient excuse.
A convenient
I mean,
excuse.
I think that the writing for him was never very good, even in the beginning. I think,
absolutely.
I mean, he kind of comes across a little bit like a Mary Sue, you know.
Well, Max hits on a really good thing that they really set up this cool thing about the cultural difference between somebody who grew up
on starships.
Yeah,
he's like the only character on Enterprise who grew up on starships.
He's a prototype for the whole difference between belters and inners on the Expanse. Like they had the opportunity to do that dynamic years ahead of time, and then they missed it, and then it's done so well on the Expanse. Because that is kind of an interesting. I mean, I guess the difference between Trek and Expanse is because, like, there's no FTL in the Expanse, so it's like because mankind does not spend as much time with these like long-term deep space explorations and intergenerational stuff. It's sort of assumed that like warp speed kind of prevents those kinds of cultural differences happening between like people who live a lot of their time in space versus versus planet side. But I don't know. Do we think there would here's a question for you. Like, do we still think those like, even in a world like Trek where there is the FTL, like, would there still be those cultural differences between like people who are more space travel? I mean, they hint at it.
Yes, because that's exactly what Mass Effect does.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have. I mean, I guess they do have FTL, but they also have like these relays that transport people vast distances across the galaxy very quickly. And the whole game is about trying to rally the entire galaxy into an alliance. So I think that IP does a really good job of sort of examining how even interconnectedness does not solve the problems of the differences that divide us.
Right.
And I think they never got into it, but I feel like once Starfleet did, when people were bringing their families on these long voyages, you could have like, depending on how long the voyage was, like, people would only go planet side on vacation. Like, because the mom or dad or both might go from one, even if the one ship's 5-year mission or whatever ends, they could just go right to another one. So you might have a whole culture of people who were born and grew up, who have lived their entire lives on a starship, except for occasional visits to a planet.
Yeah, it seems like they always sort of hint at things like that with like things like Cassidy Yates on Deep Space Nine. They do sort of like as like a freighter captain, they sort of depict her as like sort of having a little bit of a different life. Casey in the chat brings up the Maquis. That is also something that TOS I feel like doesn't. Sometimes TOS is interesting is that they sometimes explore Federation colony worlds, but they don't like. If there is that kind of like cultural difference, it's because some god alien came in and is fucking with everybody's brain. Like we don't get it. We don't like take seriously the idea of there being like cultures that develop because of the literal geographic isolation of being on a colony world. Like, okay, here's a question to develop from that, to chew on that. It's like, what is the potential harm inflicted when we sort of take cultural homogeny as like the best case scenario of human development? Because I think that is one of the perhaps less thought through sides of Star Trek.
I mean, I can speak to that. I mean, I've always I identify as queer, and that's important to me because I think that there's an important political difference between queerness and gayness. And for me, like there's obviously a lot there and there's a lot of nuance to this discussion, but like ultimately the way I try to frame it for people who aren't like negotiating those sort of intersections, I say like gay culture is largely about integrating, like gay people want to be seen as the same as straight people except for this thing that's different about them, right?
Normal.
And for me, it's always been my contention that we need to celebrate our differences. So I'm not interested in being seen as the same as straight people just with a different sexuality. I'm entirely different in many ways. And so I resist homogeneity in that way, because I think it's the differences that enrich our experiences of one another.
We should start like a Dramatis Personae drinking game for like anybody at drink anytime somebody stumbles on a particularly elevated word, whether it's technobabble in the script or just any of the academic terms we bring up in our post-show discussions. I feel like we should do that, like a Pee Wee Herman secret word thing. It's just the secret word is whatever word people stumble upon.
If I talked a lot, y'all would get really, really drunk if we did that. So
yeah.
Waivers and disclaimers.
But I will say, just kind of go to build on what Carl was talking about. It actually makes me think a lot of like when I was younger, talking about just America as a whole, as mosaic versus melting pot. And, you know, because they always tried to be, oh, it's a great melting pot. Why would we be a melting pot? We still have all these different cultures here, and we should be celebrating all of them. So it should be much more like mosaic.
Yeah, Casey once again points out the problem with depicting of homogeneity is usually we tend to view the default of being, in that case is white Western culture, which I think, we criticize Trek because we love Trek. And like, I think maybe Gene Roddenberry's intention at the beginning was, I think he said as much, that he wanted a future where people celebrated their differences. But I mean, because, he was a white dude growing up in the 60s, like that expression of it sort of ended up being like, oh, we celebrate each other's differences because but we arrive at this sort of like homogeneity. Like, and I think one example, I don't know why this popped up in my head, but I think one example of a victim of that is like, why isn't Worf Jewish? I don't know. I feel like people bring this up about like the Rozhenkos being very clearly like Belarusian Jews, especially because like Sergei Rozhenko is played by Theodore Bickel, who is like one of the most prominent Jewish actors of his time. Do we feel like sometimes, like, to bring it to back to Babylon 5, ooh, and the Theodore Bickel link. One of my favorite episodes of Babylon 5 is the first episode. For those of you who don't want, sorry, I'm going to synopsize it because I know not everybody has seen one of the greatest non-Trek sci-fi shows ever. But the first officer on the station Babylon 5 is a Russian Jew. And so there is an episode where her father passes away and her uncle, who is a rabbi, played by Theodore Bickel, who also plays Sergei Rozhenko, because he was playing all the old Jews in the 90s, comes to the station and asks her to sit Shiva for her father. And like, I think that was sort of an interesting sort of counterpoint to the Trek vision of the future, was that the main human characters were allowed to sort of embrace their cultural specificities, without it being like a source of their, trauma or difficulty. Like, we don't see Ivanova having to confront anti-Semitism in space just because she is a Jewish character. It's just, that doesn't form her experience. Like, why do we think we didn't see that shit in Trek?
One thing I wanted to bring up in regards to the homogeny thing, I feel like that's whether or not this was their intent when they introduced them, but the Borg really seems to be just because we will erase everything distinct about you, and you will become exactly like everyone else.
Not only that, we will take what makes you individual, and we'll add it to ourselves.
I already went on my
like as a
sorry, finish your thought, Max. I interrupted you.
Nope, that was pretty much it.
I was like, I think
you know, will do it against your will, because it's really it's best for you. But also, and this was something that I liked about DS9 is that every now and then Cisco gets to bring up the, you know, it's not necessarily something that he deals with in his own time, but he is acutely aware of what has happened in the past. And he does, you know, one of my favorite speeches of his is when he's like, I'm not going to pretend that Vegas was okay in the 60s.
Right. Like that's one of the things that very early on in Discovery made me really enjoy it, was that, I think I brought this up before, when Saru like says, I think Michael says something like dismissive of a particular alien race, and Saru goes like, with somebody of your cultural background, I would avoid doing that. I was just like, cool.
Also, like, I will also say, just to piggyback on that very quickly, if you've not seen What We Left Behind, the DS9 documentary, I highly suggest it, because they talk a lot about Avery Brooks.
I might watch that again.
And the way that he like, I mean, because he got to direct that episode where they went back to, like, you know, the episode where he plays like a writer writing Star Trek in like what, the 40s or something. And it's
Zach, you've got your fingers tented like Sarek right now. Are there thoughts you want to share? Because it seems like you're brimming. You look like a mixture between Sarek and Gendo Ikari.
I was kind of, you know, thinking back to the Borg thing that was said earlier, and the interesting thing about the amalgamation that they sort of represent of like a cultural or a viewpoint, it's much less about, you know, sort of bringing that all together, and it's much more about sort of taking what they view as valuable from the culture and just adding it to their stockpile of knowledge.
I think in a previous episode, I think I went on a rant about that is why that, you know, even though the joke is that like people continually use the Borg as a joke to represent communism, they're really the best representation of capitalism. But I don't want to repeat that rant. But hey, let's go back. This is a fantastic discussion that we spun out into, but I kind of do want to talk a little bit more about the specific episode. Hey, Lita, you played T'Pol.
Hello.
Do you ever feel that like either Enterprise specifically or Trek in general kind of uses the whole like the Vulcan crew member doesn't get it affected by whatever weird space malady, and that's why they're able to save the day as a crutch? Also, well, I'll put that into this feels, sorry, let me rephrase. This feels a lot like how on TNG, it was like anytime there was some kind of weird space sickness, with the exception of the Naked Now, that Data doesn't get affected, so he gets to save the day. Do we feel like maybe this is a little bit too easy or repetitive, or how do you feel?
Do I feel like this entire episode in Enterprise as a whole, part of the reason I don't like it is because all of the characters are kind of their own little trope that gets used. I never really got into Enterprise because I never really felt like I got much character. I got a lot of caricature, and I got a lot of this person has these 3 attributes. Oh shit, I need this attribute to save everyone in this episode. Here you go, Tucker. This one is not my favorite at all.
Enterprise is written very much like a Japanese Super Sentai series.
But I will say, this episode I actually liked when I watched the first time, because I worked in service industry for a long time, and being the same person in a room full of crazy is a very familiar, happy place for me. But yeah, no, I think a lot of fantasy sci-fi, just as an umbrella, a lot of writers like to write themselves an escape hatch. You know, anytime anybody went a little loony on TNG, magic empath counselor who can read everybody's thoughts. Whoosh. It just, I feel like, I don't know if it's the most brilliant writing or the laziest writing, but I sometimes think brilliant and lazy are the same thing. Because I really feel like a lot of times the best solutions come because people don't want to do the work. You don't really have to get super developed and super nuanced with this if you have someone who's immune to everything, or someone who's so completely different from everyone else that obviously they won't react the same way. So
here's a creative challenge question. Whoever wants to answer it, what would you have done as an alternative solution to this plot conflict, rather than just have T'Pol being immune? Who wants to grapple with that?
Somehow have somebody, have Travis be so obsessed with something regarding navigation that he like just he's so focused on it that like he manages to get them out of it, like it's
I think another easy solution, which could have still, I mean, it would have still been to Paul, but also make Fox immune, make it just to impact humans. I mean, come on. Like, is Fox's anatomy that similar to humans? I mean, and I know it seemed to affect him a little differently, like more, I guess he said, neurologically or something, because but it still affected him the same way. Still did the same type of stuff.
Yeah.
Also,
sorry.
Keep talking, Paul. Sorry, I talked over you.
If they had just let Phlox go full on Mangala, you might have found the solution, to inoculate the rest of the crew. Obviously that's a horrific idea and should never have ever been done. But as how it played out.
Steffi says in the video chat that she thinks that Porthos should have saved them all. Not wrong.
Well, also, how funny would the scene with Archer flying the ship while T'Pol reads out the things? How much funnier would it have been if it had to have been Phlox? Like that would I like that idea of just have it not affect the two non-human crews. So then you have to have T'Pol and Phlox have to save the day, because I think
I'm a doctor, not a starship pilot.
There we go. See, this is so goddamn easy. Why did they whiff it so bad?
It writes itself, man. It writes itself.
You think like we're not discovering anything that they couldn't have discovered back in 2001 or 2 or whatever. It's just
Berman.
like, what?
It said it's all Berman's fault. Let's be honest.
But you think like, especially Lita brings up a good point. It's like all these tropes. It's like you could have just brought up so many. You have all these opportunities to set up these good Trek trope moments that have already been established, and you just whiz it down your leg.
The reason we're doing so well with this is the same reason I think the writing on The Mandalorian blows the entire 9 Star Wars movies out of the water. It's because someone who's passionate about it, and really like knows what there's sometimes people just come and do the thing for the paycheck, and sometimes people really care. Well, and I think the difference in output really shows. There's some episodes here and there of different Star Trek entities that I'm just like,
it's like tropes can be used well if you understand what it is about those tropes. If you know which tropes are the things that make people like the things they like, rather than just lazy things. It's like people like when Western tropes and samurai movie tropes are used in Star Wars. So it's like, yes, lone gunslinger, lone samurai, go into the, walks into the saloon in the like abandoned town. We like seeing that. So like, we know it's a trope, but it's cool. So give us more of that. Yeah, exactly. Mandalorian, I will I'm not going to dominate a Star Trek show with my discussion about Star Wars, but I will just say as a comment for whatever discussion people want to have later, I feel like Mandalorian, is just like understands what makes Star Wars good, and that's the ability to use other genre tropes in a space science setting. But back to Star Trek, actually, I think now it is time for our round robin question to wrap this episode up. Let's just do the round robin question, and I'll do a whole little like wrapping up things afterwards. So the space radiation in this episode makes everybody obsess over like some relatively unimportant thing. In this situation, what do you think would be your really stupid minor thing that you would be obsessed over? Because I know what it would be for me, so I'll go first. And I know it would be, there would be something, there would be some kind of brief put out, to the crew that's like an update, that's like some kind of like general briefing on Klingon culture or some other culture that they don't have yet. And there would be some term that would be very closely but inaccurately translated. And I would be writing like page lengths discussions about why this translation is better than other translations. And I would be trying to find I would be complaining that our like computer library does not have this particular lexicon or this particular reference material. That would be my really annoying focus. So let's just go in a circle according to who I see on my Zoom. Lita, you go first. What would you be your?
I knew you were gonna pick me first.
I don't want to disappoint you.
I'm not saying I already do this, but I would be trying to respond to messages, but I'd find one and I wasn't sure about tone or context, and I would be doing the obsessive right, delete, right, delete, right, delete. Should I send a smiley? Should I not send a smiley? And just lose my shit for 3 days.
Oh yeah. We know there would absolutely like there should have been somebody on the ship who was like, he just said this. What do you mean by that? Yeah. Zach, what would be yours?
I've been practicing a lot of guitar lately, and I'm trying to like get really similar to what I hear on the radio. And I'm like, I'd probably be practicing a strumming pattern about 50 different ways to try and make it sound exactly like it was played. Because I just did that the other day. I was like listening to this Mumford & Sons song, and I'm like, I'm trying to get the strumming pattern. Why can't I fucking do it? And it was 2 hours later, and I'm like, okay, great, that's great. You know.
Let's see, Sarah. What would your answer be?
So there's two, because one would be what I would be doing, like work-wise, and one would be what I'd be doing because it's what I do. So work-wise, I would be probably obsessing over making some sort of, I make a lot of Excel files, and I imagine I'd probably do something like that in the future too. So I'd probably be fussing over trying to make it look pretty. But
I created this macro.
Yes, I would also be what you said earlier, obsessing over how everybody was reacting to me, because I do that anyway. Like that's me anyway, and it would be way worse because I'd be like, oh my god, does Archer hate me now? Oh my god, does Archer hate me? Does Trip hate me? Was they being so mean to me? Oh my god. So and so therefore I'd probably be curled up in a ball somewhere with an Excel spreadsheet. So yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, Cheryl, what would your little obsession be?
Probably something to the effect of sort of like that. I would say something to someone and then obsess about what that meant, or how did they take it? How I think they took it wrong. Maybe I should go back and apologize, or no, if I apologize, it'll make it sound like I really meant it in the first place. Or maybe I should just leave it alone. No, maybe I should say something just on and on.
All right. There seems to be a consensus developing that this episode would have been more realistic if somebody was obsessing over the angry period, if anybody knows what I'm talking about there. Max, you go.
So I definitely think some equivalent to doom scrolling, like whatever it is, like what little thing that I should be doing or like is just a little thing on the ship, I would totally like, as someone who is very practiced in hyper focusing, I can definitely see myself doing that.
Oh yeah.
But putting myself into the episode, I'd probably be like going a little bit overboard on why there are different klaxon sounds and like what each one is supposed to mean. And I would probably just get a little too in my head about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Part of me, as somebody like on the spectrum, part of me is just like, okay, they have all the micro obsession things, but like Hoshi seems to be the only one that gets like the rejection sensitive dysphoria that comes with it.
Right?
Everybody should be getting that.
And we did actually, Steffi did comment in the YouTube feed that Hoshi definitely should have been the one who was obsessing over what, like, Angel, what you said.
Yeah.
Over like the syntax and everything like that, because that's literally her job.
But as Lita said, one of her 3 things is that she's Japanese. So we had to hit that one. Or wait, okay. Did the script originally say Oriental recipe and we just left it that way? I just need to make sure that that is the case.
That's what was, as a person who did a lot of script stuff this week, that's what was in the script from.
Okay, that's what I figured. Just wanted to clear that up for the viewers. All right, Randall, your answer.
All right. Obviously, I don't need radiation for this, but I think because it's probably making zoom filters, because that's like,
yeah,
like honestly, like there was one night where I was up until 2 a.m. and I just like, they kept working on it and like hours, and Yeah, so I'm already doing that.
Wait, did
That's
you
awesome.
make your little
Oh, yeah,
your
yeah.
Archer cosplay filter?
Yeah, I
That's
made that.
tremendous. I thought you were finding these.
I mean, I made that one. I was finding other ones, but yeah.
Paul just asked if you take requests. Yeah. All right. I feel like it would be weird if we all did that, because
We
then it
did
was
have
just
somebody
like,
in the chat saying that we should do a TAS, an animated series episode with those filters, though.
that
that
would
would be
be
cool.
that,
I think that's
I would be
great.
Randall,
down
you're
for
gonna
that.
have to get to work on that. Like, I'm
Stop
just
too,
saying,
buddy.
it's the fans.
Otherwise it would just be some weird uncanny valley shit. But with the TAS, I think it would be fun.
Yeah.
All right, Ben, you go.
All right, so I was thinking about this as soon as I found out about what the round robin question was going to be, and in the discussion I realized that it's also what I would be doing job wise. So I have already reorganized my bookshelf twice this week. So I would be doing that, and since my job at the library is shelving books and occasionally reorganizing them when the higher ups say to reorganize them, but I'm constantly going, we could put this over here. And so that is what, that's what, again, I don't need radiation to do it, but that's what I would be doing.
You'd be writing your 95 theses on what Dewey did wrong. All right, and last but never least, Paul.
So my attention span is really, really low. So it might just take me up to the level of an average person. And I'm actually able to just concentrate and complete a task at a normal sort of level. But if it went beyond that, I am really obsessed with making cakes and bread at the moment, particularly bread. So I'd probably be trying to cultivate yeast from Phlox's earlobes to see if that gives me the perfect rise or something. So yeah, I'd probably be doing something like that.
Paul should have been the one in the mess hall.
Yeah. I'm gonna need to take a moment before I can eat any bread again without feeling repulsed. That would be funny. It'd just be like, oh my God, this space radiation is just making me think like I took my 15 milligrams of Adderall this morning. I am set. All right. Well, so that's bringing us up on an hour and a half past our start point. I think it is time to talk about our next episode. So do we have I think we have a pretty clear winner of our internal little poll, right? Okay. Well, so, oh, by the way, I know this probably is a good time to mention that we are changing a little bit of our cadence. So we're going to do another episode in 2 weeks, I believe. But then after that, we are actually going to move to a monthly rhythm, not because we don't enjoy doing this as often as we do it, but we just want to take a little bit more time to emphasize quality over quantity, and we can, see what kind of interesting little gags and tricks and things we can do with a little bit more time to prepare. So in 2 weeks, we are blasting off back to the Delta Quadrant. We are doing a Voyager episode, and it is going to be the episode Critical Care. The doctor's program is taken from Voyager, and he is put to work on a vast hospital ship where the twisted medical system is based on social status rather than medical condition. Wow, I cannot think of ways that we can relate that to.
Yeah, that doesn't sound familiar at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm gonna think about how.
I have no idea why we picked that episode.
I'm flummoxed, but it'll be a good challenge. In the meantime, please continue to check out sageusa.org.
Wait, before we hold on. Ooh. Paul, what were you making?
Paul was doing a little bit of baking there, a little bit of a mixing up during the chat.
I'm making my dad's birthday cake because it's his birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Paul's dad.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to him because he doesn't watch this. It's a Momofuku.
We take it back then.
What? Sorry.
We take back the happy birthday then. No,
okay.
No.
It's a Momofuku milk bar birthday cake recipe. If anybody looks it up.
Yeah, we have Momofuku and milk bar here in New York. It's some of my favorite.
Yeah.
It's it's a pretty complicated recipe, but sorry about that. I was listening to you all throughout the whole thing.
No, it was
No,
joyful.
it's okay. I just kept asking you in the chat and you were ignoring us. So thank you, Carl, for asking. It was killing me. I was like, what is he making?
He was hyper focusing.
And now the world knows.
And I was too.
No, it's nice to know that Paul is a real life hobbit. Just making his little cakes.
And the right. Well.
In the meantime, so check out sageusa.org, check out our Tiltify link. The Tiltify link will continue to be active, after this episode, the stream ends. And so check us out in 2 weeks. We're on Instagram as @DramatisTrek. We're on Facebook. What's the Facebook at? Somebody, same @DramatisTrek. In the meantime, that's the third time I've said that. But until then, ex Astris Beatitudo, and live long and prosper.